Hey, everybody, this is Kevin from Candlebox. You're listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is my co-host,
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. You can find us on Facebook or Twitter at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Central Time. We would like to thank Bob Zerl for his technical contributions. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, soon to be coming back to downtown Davenport, Iowa. We would like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for letting us use their music for our intro and bumper ending. And our guest tonight is
Kevin Martin from the Candlebox.
You're a big fan, big follower?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Growing up in college in the 90s, you know, I fell in love with all the grunge bands that came out of Seattle, and Candlebox was one of those.
But they were different.
They were, and I kind of lost touch with them a little bit in the mid years, and then kind of when I think I discovered one of their like 2008, I kind of discovered them again and started following them. So any people out there that are fans of Candlebox, if you have not heard The Gracious Few, which is a super group containing two members of Candlebox and three members of the band live, definitely check it out. It's definitely worth checking out. And then Kevin Martin also has his own solo album that came out in 2013 called Kevin Martin and the Hiwatts. Another really good effort. But yeah, definitely check those out. And
they have a new album coming out.
Yep. Candlebox has a new album coming out called Wolves, coming out it was recorded back in January, but it'll be coming out sometime in 2021, so be looking forward to that.
Yeah, so we're really excited to have them on, so let's go to that interview right now.
All right, good night.
Good night. All right, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I want to introduce my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Hi, Kevin. How's it going?
I'm good. Good afternoon, evening, morning. What time of day is it? I have no idea.
Well, it all depends where you're at. Are you out in Seattle right now?
No, I live in Los Angeles.
Oh, Los Angeles.
You know, day after an election, so I don't think I've slept at all.
Very good. Well, we want to keep this as far away from politics as we possibly can, because I think everybody is over the politics of things right now. If that's all right with you. All right. So I guess you have some exciting news to share with us about some new Candlebox music in 2021. I know you released a new song back in August. Can you please give us some insight?
Well, yeah. I mean, the record's been done since January, so it's kind of frustrating sitting on this thing. You know, none of us really expected to be where we are right now, of course, and this pandemic's been a nightmare on so many levels. And I'm not even affected by it, physically. It's just, you get a record done, you're excited to go out on the road starting, March of 2020. And I'm, here it is November of 2020 and I'm still sitting home, on a record that I want, people to hear. So, it's a little nutty, man, but it's a great record. It's really dark. It's very different for us. It's called Wolves for a reason. We're going to stay away from the politics of that as well. But, it's strange this day and age making full length records. My plan was to just do EPs, starting last year, and the label kind of was like, no, we want a full length record, which makes no sense to me because people just want music. They want music all, whenever they can get their hands on it. So for me, having this record done since January, and it was supposed to have come out springtime, and at the latest, it was going to come out August. It's been a crazy time, but I know we're all very excited about this album, and I think that the release of that first song, "Let Me Down Easy," kind of piqued the interest of a lot of Candlebox fans. So, my only hope is that the next song we release, which we're talking about doing in December, kind of does the same thing. It's just, like I said, it's a strange day and age to try and release full-length records right now, unless you're some sort of major artist, a Pearl Jam or Foo Fighters or Mariah Carey or some of this pop music that's out now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What's your process for picking one of your songs to release as a single?
I give it to a bunch of friends of mine that I trust. That's, to be perfectly honest, that's really what you do. I mean, I have friends that are in the industry, Apple Music, Spotify. These are people that, hear music every single day, and sometimes it's best to let them choose for you. Their finger is obviously way further up the pulse than mine could possibly be. I'm a 51-year-old man that's still making rock and roll music. I'm in no way, shape, or form the person who should decide what a single should be. So I really leave it up to I've got a great manager, Amy Decker, and she's got an amazing ear for music. She was obviously Chris Cornell's manager forever, and so I trust her opinion. But honestly, it's those people that I know are really, really listening right now to a lot of music, and that's who I give it to. I'm like, listen, these are our 5 or 6 choices for a first release. What's your opinion? And they all unanimously came back with "Let Me Down Easy." So, I think that was our obvious. Why I could have said no, but that would have been stupid.
How has your songwriting changed, progressed throughout the years from the beginning of the debut album up until now?
Well, now I know what I'm doing. When Candlebox first started, I was a drummer. It got stuck with this job of being a lead singer of a rock and roll band. So it was never really my intention. So the debut Candlebox album is the first album I've ever sung on, and I don't sound anything like I sounded back then either, which is interesting. I guess I learned how to use the instrument that's been given to me now over 30 years of doing it. But I think ultimately I go into kind of the mindset is whenever I'm ready to make a record, I make a record. I don't sit around writing songs every single day. I don't write on tour. I will write sometimes during sound checks, but that's only if something kind of inspires that for me. Maybe the night before, or happen to pick up the acoustic, before anybody else stepped on stage and start kind of jangling on the thing. But I'm not a really prolific musician. I'm far too insecure, if you will. So when I'm ready to make a record, I dig really, really deep into the catalog of music that my head has been kicking around for a while. I have ideas from 30 years ago. I have ideas from 30 seconds ago. But what I tend to do is I put my phone down in front of me and I'll either hum a melody or I'll strum a chord progression on a guitar, which is always based on a drum beat. I was a drummer prior to being a singer, so I write everything around drum beats. I may have heard, a song recently that had a drum beat that I liked, and I'll work around that and write a song around it. Not necessarily in the same tempo or anything like that, or even in the same pattern. But if there's something about it that I liked, I will form a song based on that. But that only comes it's honestly really about every 3.5 years for me. I just don't find music that interesting.
Well, I'd say you're doing a pretty good job of it so far.
I know it's a terrible thing to say, but I just don't find it that interesting, especially right now. I'm so bored with what's going on musically. I mean, I and not even just with Candlebox. I think, this record for us is the first thing that's excited me musically, in 4 years. It's disappearing in airports. So that was a labor of love, that record. I made no money on it. I sold, very few copies. But I love disappearing in airports. Wolves, our new record, I'm crazy passionate about, just because of the levels at which we pushed ourselves as musicians. And, but I like I said, I just don't find music that interesting right now. So I probably shouldn't even be releasing a record, to be perfectly honest with you. But, we are. At some point it's coming out next year, and hopefully people like it. I mean, either way, I'm going to go out and play these songs and try to enjoy myself with them live. It's really difficult. A band like Candlebox, people expect you to play, 10 of the 12, 11 songs from the debut album. And
right.
I only want to play 2 or 3 of them, but it pays the rent, and I can't and will not fight that. I refuse to be that kind of person that says I'm not doing it, because I love those songs.
Were you surprised with Fast and how like Far Behind, and you blew up on MTV, and how sorry, I'm losing my question, but
thank God for
did it surprise you at all with how it exploded?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think Pete, Marty, Scott, and myself were so much younger in age than the rest of the musicians, our contemporaries in Seattle. I was 19 when Candlebox started. Eddie Vedder was 24 at that point. Chris Cornell was 24. Lane Staley was 23. So, I mean, we came along quite a bit later than our contemporaries. They had all had bands in the, obviously in the 80s, and we did as well, but none of us were playing in any of those bands, because then we would have been, 14 and 15 years old. So I think that when the record kind of came out and started to get some traction, I think we were surprised that people really even gave a shit about Seattle anymore. Pearl Jam had released 10, Nirvana had released Nevermind, Alice in Chains had released Facelift, Soundgarden had released Super Unknown. I mean, we were just kind of late to this game, and I was surprised that people even gave a shit. But then again, a lot of people didn't know we were from Seattle, so, and it's still kind of a misunderstanding, I think, with a lot of people. I think there are several people out there that think we're a California band that kind of moved to Seattle to get signed or something.
Yeah.
And, I've always found that to be funny. But, listen, there were bands that were doing that. There were bands there's a band called the Best Kissers from the World, or Best Kissers in the World, I think, that moved from Arizona or something, or somewhere south, to get signed in Seattle, and they ended up getting signed out of Portland. But, it was a strange time. I was really surprised, and look, pleasantly. I mean, you're on the road, and, in 1993, your record comes out, and, you're touring with a band called Greta, and then next thing you know, you're going out on tour with Living Colour, and then in the following January, you start a 3-month tour with Rush, and, then your record hits 1 million copies. So it was pretty fast. But, like I said, we were all so grateful to have had that opportunity. And I think even now at this day and age, I'm just surprised that I can still, go out and play shows and people still give a shit. Like I said, I just, they want to hear you. They want to hear Far Behind. They want to hear Change. They want to hear Cover Me.
Yeah.
Then there are those people that love the record Lucy, which I can't stand that fucking record, and they want to hear that record, So it's like, I will not look a gift horse in the mouth, man. I pinch myself every single day that this is what I get to do.
Well, this is a great segue to the next question. A few years ago, the band Candlebox, were the headliners down at Rock the District in Rock Island, Illinois. This is where we're from, Rock Island. It's apparent that you and the rest of the band are about the live experience, and it was such an energetic experience to see the band play live. How is it changing gears to when you and the rest of the band have to get into the studio and kind of hunker down, and now it's about working your chops and not necessarily playing as energetic as you do on stage. So I guess maybe how do you change gears like that from playing as such an energetic live band to getting into the studio or your remote studio from your home and recording music and scaling it back to how you do?
Well, I think it's two different types of energy. When you're in the studio, the excitement of recording these songs, and we record live, so we tend to keep about 75 to 80% of the performance when we're recording, and that comes from the fact that we're such a tight band live, and that we get along so well as friends. So the energy that that we've put out during a live show, it's very easy to capture that same energy in the studio, and that's what you're looking for. When you're on stage, it's because there's an audience that's out in front of you, and they're kind of feeding you the energy. When you're in a live environment of a recording studio, and you're looking at one another's faces, and you that moment where it kind of clicks and everything feels right, that's what you wait all day for, and then that's when you get the best songs. So we don't really change gears. We just, we allow our personas to find their position in that studio and, push the energy out in different ways.
Oh, very good. This kind of take this different direction here is the business side of the music industry is cutthroat and is known for screwing artists out of royalties. You've had your issues with that subject matter. Are you privy to discuss, the royalties and dishonesty that you've had to deal with labels, or is that something you even want to touch on?
Oh, you can talk about it. Sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me.
Sure. So, I guess maybe the question is, how is it the dishonesty of dealing with record labels? How has it affected you as part of you now as the musician, and also you have to be a representative of yourself as part of the business side of things? How has it affected you as you've gotten older, I guess, maybe?
Well, this industry, when we got into it, our attorney told us, don't be surprised if you guys get screwed out of shit. That's why they became so powerful. Warner Brothers Records and Sony Records and Capitol Records and Columbia Records, and it was all gave artists opportunities to make money and to have a career, but ultimately the goal was to become an Amazon Prime, if you will, for each one of these record labels, is to become so powerful, so financially stable that you could sign whatever you wanted, and if it failed miserably, it didn't matter, because the next Bruce Springsteen record was going to sell 17 million copies or something. Mm-hmm. It's just disheartening. That's it's heartbreaking. That's really the most disturbing thing about being a recording musician is no one's kissing you when they're fucking you. It's like there's no love in that. It's really just like it's very abusive, and young bands ask me all the time, what can I do? And I'm like, just God, don't sign a record deal. Anyone can put out music now, and you can succeed financially just by being a really good marketer. Mm-hmm. But we got a great record deal. We got a great opportunity. Great things happened for Candlebox, but at the same time, there were a lot of mistakes that we made, and things that we did that were detrimental to our career, and mistakes that our team made that allowed Maverick Records to put us in a position where we had to break up the band to get out of a contract, which in turn backfired. So, it happens. I didn't get paid any royalties from the year 2000 until 2013. But, it was because of a deal that was made in order for me to get out of my deal with Maverick Records. And sometimes you have to do that in order to be free.
You touched upon, not signing with a label, and we've talked to many artists now that are, they're doing whatever they can to not sign with a label, the Patreon, crowdfunding, you name it, they're doing it. But do you feel like, is that really the way of the future for artists now, to maximize the amount of income that they can put in their pocket, is to avoid the big record label or labels in general, and just try to fund these things through, like a Patreon or something like that? Do you feel like that is the way to do it now?
Well, I mean, it depends. Ultimately, you've got to have a little bit of a following in order to do a crowdfunder. It's not that easy to get people on your Facebook page to give you $100
right.
to go out and make a record. Say you've got to round up. Studio time is going to be $5,000 for a week. You got to raise $5,000. It is the way of the future. It's a very difficult way of the future. You've got to have a certain amount of fans that are willing to do that for you. But ultimately, you don't even have to go to a recording studio anymore. I mean, there are SoundCloud accounts that I've been listening to that I can tell that this stuff's been recorded in somebody's, bedroom. There are so many different, drum machines now and patterns. Like GarageBand has, everybody knows this. They have drum patterns. They have, you pick your drummer, you pick the city you want him from to style of music, and he plays along to your song. I mean, why would you spend $10,000 going to a studio and make a record when you don't have to? And so I think that's kind of where I'm at, and what I think people should kind of do is just do it on your own. If you can raise the money through a crowdfunding, sure, do it. The downside of that is that you really have a responsibility to use that money, the correct way, and you have to get a product out. And your fans aren't just going to give you money and then you don't release something. It's you have to follow through, and I think a lot of bands don't have that ability to follow through.
Yeah, very good.
Going back to the early days of Seattle, when you read the some of the history of some stuff, there was a lot of like the family trees of 6 Degrees of Pearl Jam and all that kind of stuff. Where do you fit in? You were talking about you didn't play with any of those bands,
like a lineage type thing.
No. I was friends with several of the guys at Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, but. Lane was one of my close friends. Andy Wood was somebody that I had, met and spent time with in a shoe store that I worked at. But really, I had no musical relationships with any of those other artists. I wish that I did. I wish that I had this Mark Arm, who played in every single band possible with every other musician in Seattle, but I just didn't. I was so young. I moved there when I was 14 years old. So my dad took a job in Seattle. We moved there from Texas in 1984. So it kind of, I was thrown into that world, but I did not meet any of those musicians or have any relationships with any of those guys other than, hey, how are you? Or like I met Lane at several parties. We became friends just because we like to talk about the same kind of music, and that was sort of what that was. But it wasn't really like we were gonna, go out and have a cup of coffee together, sort of, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Let's kind of change gears a little bit. The Candlebox debut album is now, 27 years old, I believe, and you toured in support of that album when it turned 25 years old. As the album approaches 30 years, and we're getting closer, will you and the rest of the band think about touring as a 30th anniversary type of thing, like you guys did on the 25th? Is that a possibility?
We've talked about that. Yeah, we've talked about that. It's interesting, doing the 2 seasons or the 2 shows in Seattle in 2018 as the original lineup was really, really nice. It was a lot of fun. Going out and touring on the 30th anniversary of that would require some specific movements. Scott's got his own business. Barty's got his own law firm. Pete's a producer. So we would have to figure out if the guys could even get away. I'm the only one who still does this as a full-time job in my band. So, it would really require them kind of figuring out if they could take the time off to go and do something like that, which I would be happy to do it. If we went out for 6 weeks and just played our favorite cities and the favorite venues, and called it a day, I think it'd be worth it. But that's not until 2023. So, we still got a couple years, if we even make it to 2023. So, we'll have to see.
Oh, very good. Go ahead,
Jeff. So Eric and I are big fans of supergroups, and back in 2010, you had your own version of a supergroup with the members of the band live, the Gracious Few. Can you tell us about that album?
That was another labor of love. That record cost us more to. Thank you. It cost us more to make than I think we'll ever earn back on that record. Because it was self-funded. The tour was self-funded. We all pitched in and did it on our own together. So I had been approached by them. We played a show with those guys with Live. Candlebox and Live played a show together in 2009 somewhere in Pennsylvania. And I'd known Chad and Patrick and Chad and Ed since 1993. So, it was nice to see him and hang out and catch up. And of course they had much greater success than Candlebox did. And so, back in the day, there was never really an opportunity for us to ever tour together or, we played Woodstock together, but that was in 94. So when we did the show, the guy's like, listen, Ed's going off to do this solo stuff. And we would like to make a record with you. Would you be interested? And I was like, fuck yeah, man. I'm bored as shit with doing, Candlebox stuff right now, because at that point, it had been 2006 to 2009 that we had been out, touring. We had released the End of the Sun record, and, I had become accustomed to, playing with other musicians from the break of Candlebox from 2000 to 2006. So, it was kind of that 7-year itch kind of thing you get, when you're with a girlfriend for, 7 years and it's time to, maybe find another girlfriend. I was that way with the band. We went into the studio that fall, with Jerry Harrison, who did Throwing Copper for them. And we wrote songs between, I think it was July and October. Yeah. So we wrote for 2 weeks on the East Coast and 2 weeks on the West Coast. And then we went to the studio in November in Sausalito, up here in California. And the record was done, I think, January. And we released it maybe that spring, I think it was, on our own label. And, we had a tour planned and things fell through. The promoters weren't willing to give us the guarantees that we wanted. So we decided to go out in the tour bus and just play for the door. And so we did it like an old school punk rock band would do. Is we pulled in, played the show, and got paid whatever the door generated. And it was very humbling, it was very, very humbling. And at the same time, it was so fucking cool that we were doing it that way, because, that's the one thing that I really loved about when Candlebox first started, was all those shows that we played and all those kind of early shows that I went to when I was a kid, the punk shows and stuff. I knew they were door deals, and it kind of made me feel like, we were doing it for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. And it, whatever we were making on the road kept us on the road, and that was fine. We survived. There is talk of us doing another record, but I don't know when they would have time, but we would have time.
Yeah.
And how does an artist like yourself, you've had the Gracious Few, you've done your solo side project stuff, and along with Candlebox, how does that form as, what is the priority, or as you're looking down the road, will this last the duration, or do you know, when you're doing maybe your side solo project, or you're doing when you did the Gracious Few, did you kind of have it in mind that it was going to be somewhat short-lived, or it's going to be for this time, this time period? How do you focus in on things like that? Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, perfect sense. Well, listen, you always hope that something you're doing is going to be, for the rest of your life, especially when you're a musician. Drummers are the worst members of bands because they go where the money is always. But singers tend to, I found myself specifically, we really believe that when we start something that it's going to be the end all be all, and it's going to last for a really long time. So, I make sure to put in that amount of energy every time I do something. Because I've never been one to kind of phone it in, if you will. And it's exciting, when you're working with new musicians. I mean, I have a project with Morgan Rose, and my bass player Adam and I with Morgan Rose from Seven Dust called Le Projet, which we love. We just can't seem to figure out the time to finish it. We've got, I think, maybe eight songs or 7 songs or something. And, that's another one that I just immediately fell in love with. So I don't look at it in any way, shape, or form as this is just a short-term thing. I do intentionally approach it as something that is going to last or be as successful, if not more, than Candlebox was.
Oh, well stated. Good, Jeff.
Yeah. So speaking of drummers, so your original drummer, Scott, I don't know if I'm going to say his last name right, but is it Mercado?
Mercado, yeah.
Yeah, and he was with you for a couple albums, and then on 1998 Happy Pills, you guys brought in Dave Cruson, which was originally on Pearl Jam's 10 album. Can you talk a little bit about the drummers you've had in the band?
We're the Spinal Tap of Seattle rock bands. I've had bizarre gardening accidents. I mean, Scott was and still is a spectacular drummer. He actually fills in sometimes on the road for me now, because, like I said, I have drummers that like to go where the money is. He also is one of those drummers, because I was a drummer, we would butt heads, and, it was an ego thing at first. And obviously, as the years have passed, he's realized that, I was never, ever capable of being the drummer that he is. And I don't even know why he felt threatened by me at all. But, a lot of drummers I find, they don't like to be told what you're looking for. They don't like you to show them patterns and beats and fills and the actual pocket of a song, because they think that that's what they do. And why can't you just let them do it? But when you're a singer that's a drummer, like myself or Steven Tyler or Chris Cornell or any of those, singers that are out there that started out as drummers, we have very specific ways that we work off of songs. And that is generally always off the drum beat. So, that's why I'm, one of those singers that drummers love to hate. Dave Cruson is the type of drummer that I never had to show or tell anything to. I mean, literally, I'd play something and he would play exactly what I heard in my head. It's bizarre. And I mean, I think, it's obvious when you watch the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame of Pearl Jam and Dave gets up there to play, Alive, and as great as Matt Cameron is, or Jack Irons, or any of the drummers that Pearl Jam had, when Dave Cruson plays Alive, that's how Pearl Jam's supposed to sound. And that's what drummers do to music, and that's what they can bring to music. And that's why I think when we got Dave in the band, the direction that we were moving musically, Dave was perfect for. The way we started as a band, Scott was perfect for. Yeah. And even, Dave's played on every single Candlebox record since Happy Pills. He was the drummer on Into the Sun. Even though Scott was touring with us, Dave played on the record. And we made it very clear to Scott, listen, it's not that you're not capable of this. It's just you aren't playing in the style that we're writing. And, it just doesn't work. So if you want to do this and you want to go on the road, you're going to have to let Dave make the record because it's just not working. And, I think that's hard for any musician to hear, but I think he understood. He had left the band in 96, late 96, early 97. So he really couldn't argue with us over it. And then we've had some other fillers in between. I've got Robin Diaz now, who plays with me, who's a phenomenal drummer. Excuse me, swallowed a peanut the wrong way. I'm always looking for Chad Gracie is a great drummer with the Gracious Few. Morgan Rose is a fantastic drummer. The funny thing about Morgan Rose is he can't play a straight pattern, So, we had some times in the studio where I would just look at him and go, dude, you can't play a straight pattern. He's like, yes, I can. And he would try, and he can't do it because he's so used to playing the way he plays. Like you listen to Semidust record, there's no patterns on there that are going da 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 da. He can't do it. It's just not his style, And it's interesting as a singer like myself, working with these types of drummers, how different each one of them is.
I have two more questions. Two more questions for you. Hope you get that peanut all cleared out of your throat there.
God, it's like, it's sitting right there. I'm not choking though. I'm good.
All right. So I got two more questions for you. But you had spoke 94 Candlebox. You guys did a 3-month run with Rush on the Counterparts tour. What was the process of getting on that tour as the opening act? How did you guys score that?
They asked us.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Very easy.
Yeah, they personally requested us. I guess they were big fans of our record. Their manager, what the hell's his name? I can't remember his name for the life of me. And every time I think of him, I'm like, I'm going to say his name and then I forget it. Anyways, he had been given our record by one of our friends at Warner Brothers, Kenny Pavogel. And he played it for the guys and they really liked it. So they asked us to go out on the road with them on that tour. And we were just as shocked as everybody else was. I think even the Rush fans that were seeing us every night, we were just as shocked as them that we were out there doing those shows. But they were such great guys, and we spent a lot of time with them. They spoke to us quite frequently about our shows, about our set lists, about things that they felt that we were kind of missing out on. They just were so gracious with their time, and it made us, really kind of pay closer attention to what it was that we were doing as a band live. God, they were just the kindest guys, man. I've gotten nothing but, great things to say about them. And they gave us such a huge opportunity. There's not a lot of, young bands from Seattle that played, Madison Square Garden on their first record, it's, maybe on the 4th or 5th or 6th record. I know Alice in Chains, I think, got to play it with Van Halen, but, when you're supporting a band like Rush, you have a huge responsibility, and that is to, be the best opening band you can, to warm that crowd up for them. And we did our best, and I got such great memories of that tour, man. It was really special.
To kind of take off on that question, drummer to drummer, how much were you able to pick Neil Peart's brain as far as theory and conceptual playing? Were you able to do much of that with him?
Oh, no. I first of all, I know nothing about, theory when it comes to drums. I'm a John Bonham guy. I just I picked up the sticks one day and started playing. I never studied it like Scott Mercado did, but I know he and Scott would chat occasionally about their styles, and Scott has an interesting left-hand, right-hand movement, which Neil was kind of interested in. But ultimately we just talked about music and, inspirations and life. We spent a lot more time with Alex than we did the rest of the guys, because Alex would come in our dressing room and drink scotch with us. But awesome. I did happen to play, 18 holes of golf with Neil in his cart, and, spending 4.5 hours with somebody that is, that just brilliant on so many levels, scholarly and book smarts and street smarts. And, the conversation just went in between Canada and America and politics. And I was just fascinated by him. And, obviously this was, long before his wife and his daughter were passed away and killed. Mm-hmm. So he was a bit more of an open book at that point. But years later, when we went to see them in Irvine Meadows here in Southern California, Alex and Getty came out to say hi, but Neil was not, coming to speak to anybody. It was sad. I was sad that I didn't get to say hi to him, but I completely understood, where he was and his headspace at that time.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I have one last question for you, and then we're going to let you go for the night. I always throw a curveball question at our guests at the last question, so get ready. Are you ready? So
yep.
Back in the early 90s, Candlebox toured with God Lives Underwater. Did David Riley, the lead singer of God Lives Underwater, did he actually pass away from a tooth infection? Is that true? Do you know?
We never toured with them. We did one or two shows with them. But yes, he got. I think he had like an abscess, which obviously can be very dangerous. And I think that he had some sort of blood disorder, and it got into his blood and killed him. That was my understanding of what happened to him. But I believe it is something as odd as he had a bad tooth, an abscess became, or maybe it clotted, and the clot killed him. I can't recall exactly what it was, but yeah, we never toured with those guys. I loved that band. We did, I think, one or two shows, maybe even three with them. Same with Fingered 11. We didn't tour with them. We played a lot of shows with them, but
okay.
Yeah, great band.
Yeah, and when I read that back in the day, I thought, this is not true at all. There's no way somebody died of a tooth issue. Makes me want to brush my teeth a heck of a lot more. So, but anyway, before we let you go for the evening, is there anything that we did not touch upon that you would also like to plug or promote before we let you go? Is there anything we forgot?
Well, I was going to say vote, but we're already past that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, listen, thank you for the opportunity to chat with you guys.
Yeah,
and it still amazes me that, like I've said it several times, that people want to, talk to me or whatever, but, I'm just a kid who, somehow got stuck with this job and was good enough to do it to where it's, here I am 30 years later, able to still do it. And I'm grateful that people give me that opportunity. I don't think people, understand my sense of humor sometimes, but I don't take myself seriously. And when I say that I don't find music very interesting right now, part of that's true, but the other part of it is the fact that, I have to kind of, I have to laugh right now because it's a very serious world we're living in, and I'm trying to find a little bit of sunshine in all this darkness. So thank you for letting me chat, and I appreciate it. And the record comes out next year. It's called Wolves, and tell all your friends about it.
Oh, we definitely will. I just wanted to touch upon when you said music not that interesting to you right now. I'm going to ask you another question, but do you feel like though that kind of goes in with people's COVID mental health right now, as far as just finding things to look forward to? Do you find that to be an issue with yourself?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. It's not like I'm in lockdown here in Los Angeles. I have a vacation house out in Palm Springs. I go out there with my wife and my son and, go to the skate park. I still skateboard with him. And,
nice.
So I have that outlet. I just think that, over the years, music's just gotten really stale. And I don't know why. And I watch, like what's going on in Octane on Sirius, and I kind of laugh because it's like 8 hours of the same band,
Right.
I mean, why does that need to happen? I don't understand. It's just weird to me. And Candlebox doesn't fit on any of those fucking stations except Lithium, which is, they're not going to play a new Candlebox record. Where are the interesting rock and roll stations? I mean, I listen to Alternative Nation on Sirius, and it's cool. I listen to Sirius XM, and it's cool, but I don't hear anybody doing what Candlebox does. So, I mean, maybe we're just a bunch of idiots, and the music that we're making is, it's so different that people just can't fucking, be attracted to it or something. I don't understand, but I seriously, I listened to Octane once last week, and I had a 2-hour drive out to Palm Springs, and I was just like, man, what the fuck? Although the new Marilyn Manson record is phenomenal.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Really, really good record. So, but I don't know if it's long story short, I don't know if it's this COVID kind of vibe that I'm feeling. It might be for other people, but for me, it's just, I'm just tired of hearing the same fucking song,
Mm-hmm.
from a different band.
Right.
And then of course
stations play the same songs.
Yeah. And then you see these, these big rock and roll festivals or whatever they are. And it's like 15 of the same band,
Yep.
But they all have a different name. It's like, oh, well, that's cool. This one's got a female singer, and she's like, different because she's a female, but it's the same song. It's like, oh God, please.
Well, that being said, as we're coming to the end of this interview, would you consider doing a part 2 with us and talk about more issues like this within the music industry? Would that be something that you'd be interested in? Maybe nothing non-promotional for yourself, but just talk about the politics of the rock and roll industry. Any interest?
Sure. I have an opinion. Yeah. So you can just text me whenever and say, hey, we got free time, next month or whatever, and
sure,
we'll just schedule it.
Hey, that sounds fantastic. Okay, so well, anyway, we have taken enough of your time. We want to thank you so much for your willingness to participate, and we look forward to having a part 2 with you.
Oh, it's my pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, man. Fantastic. Have a great night.
Thank you.
You too, guys.
All right, bye-bye.
See ya.
Everybody take from